Hello, everybody. Guess who's back on my podcast today? It's Rob Levy, my single guy friend. And today we're going to talk, maybe more like argue, about some things. Thanks for being back here, Rob.
Glad to be back. Very happy to be back. Bring it on. Come on.
I'm surprised you're willing to come back because I shared something on my Instagram lately where there was some pushback.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's always pushback. There's a little pushback. Pushback's fun.
Oh, yeah. You like that. You like that. Okay. So I asked some of you guys for topics that Rob and I could talk about, argue about. So we're going to do that today. Okay. So let's get right to it. Would you hire a hot nanny?
Oh, we're going right out of the gate. Okay. Would I hire a hot nanny? Well, as a single person, I would love to hire a hot nanny for myself. But you mean as if I had children, would I hire a hot nanny?
I'm shaking my head right now in case you're not watching the video version. Yes, if you were married.
Oh, I see. Okay. So
and you had kids. And you had kids.
And I had kids.
Would you hire a hot nanny? Do you think that's appropriate?
I don't think it's appropriate to hire a hot nanny.
Attractive.
I think it's appropriate to hire attractive people. Attractive energy, attractive people is always good because if you hire unattractive energy, that's what's going to be around your kids. That's what they're being raised with. You have people that have that like frown on their face, that have that bad energy. So you do want to hire attractive energy, which will have a level of physical attractiveness because when you have good energy, you feel more attractive, you come across more attractive, people, feed off that. But, hiring a hot nanny that is distracting, especially if as relationships go, especially when you have children, there's a lot of challenges with children that challenge the relationship. And when you have certain things that could distract unnecessarily, it could cause problems. So there's a difference between hot and attractive.
I'll just say, let's say attractive.
Yeah, I would hire an attractive nanny.
You would?
Yes.
What if it was a male attractive nanny?
Sure.
You would?
Yeah.
That wouldn't bother you at all?
Again, we're not talking about a hot guy. We're talking about an attractive, someone who comes across with attractive energy, right? So,
yeah, but I guess what I mean is attractive energy could be, could have a warm older lady who's overweight and 60 years old, but she's like, has beautiful energy.
Right. That's attractive.
That's attractive. But what I'm talking about is they're young. They're younger than your spouse, perky, youthful energy. But they're good at their job. Of course, that's just given. Just they're good at their job and they're qualified, and they're very attractive.
Physically, they're very
physically.
So that's a hot person then.
That is a hot person.
Hot.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Then it's a hot person.
So then no.
No.
Yes, correct.
Wait, no, it wouldn't bother you, or no?
It's not a good idea to hire said hot person.
Okay. What if they were like pretty hot, like not like 10 hot, but just.
And they're really, really good at their job?
Yeah.
Debatable. Yeah, if they really connect with the kids and things like that, and I'm in a good place with my wife, she's in a good place with me, then I wouldn't rule it out, but it's getting to where if the attractiveness becomes distracting, then no. And I think you got to be honest with yourselves. Just like, am I going to start to develop feelings for this person? Physically, no, don't do it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I just don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's necessary. I think people are human. And it's an intimate space because that person's around both you guys a lot. And I hear a lot of men say like, it shouldn't matter, whatever. And I ask the same thing. I flip it around. Like, what if it's a guy like, oh, I wouldn't care. And I usually say, okay, for argument's sake, let's just say your wife doesn't want to fuck this guy. Okay. But he's attractive. He's younger than you. He's got maybe a 6-pack. And he could probably like fuck all night because he's younger than you. But she doesn't want to sleep with him. But he's very pleasant around. He's helping her. He's doing things that you aren't doing. It's very nurturing, And so I just don't think, of course, if you trust your partner, you trust your partner. I just think that there are many people that you can hire that are qualified. So I don't. In general, if I had like two choices.
If you had two choices.
Equal skill.
Well, if your choice was between someone who you felt was a good fit for our skill, the type of stuff they do and how they interact, and someone who is not so much and has some issues, and one was really, that person that was good was really attractive, and the person that wasn't, and those are your only two choices, say, you know what, this person is going to be helping raise your kids, get someone with better energy, and step up your game a little bit, have more date nights, have more this, have more that. Don't get in a position where you feel like that person's supplementing the intimacy duties. Either way. So intimacy for, again, we talked about this last time, intimacy for a female or a wife, a housewife, a working wife, across both, same thing with men. Like the intimacy requirements are going to be different. So whatever those are, if that person is fulfilling those intimacy as a supplement, then you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And again, there's the book, the 5 love languages and things like that. So if they're satisfying some of their top requirements, it's a problem. If they're not, again, if someone's just not physically attracted to looks, but they're more attracted to, verbal affirmations and things like that, they could not be that physically attractive, but they could be so eloquent in what they say. And guess what? Now all of a sudden you're still back in the same problem. So again, it's really, it's not a straight, it's not, as much as we'd like to say, hey, this is a black and white answer. It's obviously not.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
You answered that more eloquent than I thought you would.
I'd like to try to fool her.
All right. Okay. The next one is pet peeve or deal breaker. What are some of your pet peeves?
Well, as you know, I have what's scientifically known as misophonia, which is a problem with hearing chewing sounds and certain people talking with food in their mouth and chewing gum, things like that. Those are very intense pet peeves that always bothered me as a kid. And I didn't realize they were deal breakers until as I got older and realized that, I could actually find people that don't do that. Like that's actually an option.
Don't eat.
Don't smack their food when they eat.
Well, smacking's different. Just eat more quietly. They have to take small bites then.
No. I've been on dates. I've been with friends. I love to eat, so I'm always going to be eating, and I've had a lot of experience with eating with people. So
you just made me eat my sandwich in my car.
That's correct.
Yeah. He was not in my car, yes. By the way. He said, "Let me know when you're done eating and chewing your sandwich, and then I'll come out and meet you."
But chewing, because sometimes you put food in your mouth and you'll talk.
I know. I'm not.
That gets me.
I get it. No, I agree with you. I hate smacking. I think I'm pretty normal though with my. I think you are sensitive to it. I don't think I'm like a gross eater.
No, you're not a gross eater, but yeah, there are people that will just as they're chewing, and that's like a knife in my ear.
That's a deal breaker.
That's a deal breaker for me. Okay. If I'm dating someone, absolutely deal breaker. And there's people that just eat quietly. That when they eat quietly. And there's some people just by the shape of their in their habits that they eat loud, and that bothers me. It does bother me. And I've been out on dates with beautiful people, attractive people, and then we're having a meal, and I'm like, I'm done.
Would you ever say that if you really liked her and say like, I have this thing, and give her a chance to try?
So now I do. So now I actually, before I was self-conscious about it because I felt like I'm like now telling someone, hey, there's something wrong with me. And I'm like, oh, this is not what's wrong with me. When I found out that it was an actual thing with people, I didn't know it was a thing until I looked it up online. And as I'm typing the words, this whole, like a bunch of stuff pop up. I'm like, oh, wow, there's a whole community on this. In fact, my sister-in-law for the holidays says, hey, for a holiday gift, we're going to donate $100 to any charity of your choice. So I'm picked a Misophonia charity. Came like that to me. But it's something where before I was self-conscious about it. Now I'm accepting this is something who I am, and not accepting it to the point where I'm like, hey, I can't get better, or I can't, there's some days I tolerate not. So still working on myself to try to make it a lot easier, but also saying, hey, this is part of me. These things bother me, being aware of it. And so now I do. So one of my previous relationships, I told her, I said, listen, And she would chew gum. She would hit that note that would bother me, and she would eat food and hit that note. So I would let her know. I'm like, hey, this bothers me. And she said, well, what if I chew? And then, of course, the next day we're out there, she's chewing gum. And I said, just letting you know, if you can spit your gum out, it'll be great. And she's like, well, what if I chew quietly? I'm like, I'm still going to hear it. And so we'll give it a try. So of course I'm driving. I'm like, I hear it. Please, I'll give you 100 kisses if you spit your gum out, and she loved it when I did that. So, she did, but she's like, wow, this really bothers you. I'm like, it really bothers me. It makes me want to cause physical harm to myself, not the person who's doing it. That's how much it bothers me.
Okay. Fair enough. So what else is a deal breaker for you?
See, now everyone sees why I'm saying all this. So, so deal breakers. I've had people that were mean to my cat. And that's a deal breaker.
Okay, but that's like your kid.
He's like my child. Yes,
yeah.
He's a good boy. Yes.
Yeah,
he's poopy, by the way, and he's a good boy. I've had people be mean to him and not connect with him. And he's not a normal cat. He's a very cuddly, dog-like cat. And
what's an example of someone being mean? What did they do?
Jumps. Chilling on the couch. He jumps on the couch and she kind of pushes him away. That's mean.
You think that's mean?
The way they did it, yes. The way that person did it, absolutely.
What is the way? Like annoyed?
Don't shove an animal, just be nice to an animal. But don't shove them.
But that's how animals communicate. You ever
shoving?
watch Caesar Milan? Yeah, because we're sensitive. We tend to want to treat animals. Well, this is at least what Caesar says, who he trained Jimmy. We went to a workshop with him.
Jimmy.
And a lot of times what he says, he says that humans, we're so emotional.
Jimmy's her dog, not her husband, in case you're just joining the show, by the way.
And he says a lot of times, we're sensitive. We want to baby them. But in the animal world, animals shove each other. If they want the space, it's like this. It's not, you don't think about the emotions. You just do that. So I don't see that as being mean unless it was like an annoyed, like, ugh, or, something like that.
Yeah, it's attitude. It's also, he's an older cat. He just wants to cuddle. He's not like Jimmy's a very, young pup. And sometimes you may have to get a little bit, like, hey, this is how things are. But, Poopy's, he's like, he's kind of like me. He's already set in his ways.
Sensitive.
Sensitive. Communicative and loving and wanting to cuddle and things like that. But yeah, being mean to animals in general, but
that would
but personally, yeah. I mean, if you don't get along with my cat, then you're probably not going to get along with me.
Yeah, I think I would not tolerate someone being mean, but I've been with men who are disinterested. At first, it's usually at first with my dog, but then they learn to really love them, like more than I do. So yeah. I've given that a chance. And actually, Pete did not want to get Jimmy at first. He's like, no. And now, I mean, you see him with Jimmy.
Oh, he's great with Jimmy.
I'm like, chop the liver with them, but I didn't care.
But Pete was never mean to Jimmy. He never kind of shoot him away and be like, get off my space.
No. He's loving.
It's an attitude. There's a certain attitude we could tell, like you actually despise that. It's almost like you feel, okay, so just to be
being
clear,
loved.
It's almost like you feel like there's a line that you have to choose that the choice is being made. Well, it's either me or the cat kind of thing. Instead of being like, we can all get along fine. Like when you start feeling that kind of split energy, that's what I mean by being done. I mean, yeah, of course. Listen, anyone who hangs around my cat long enough, more than a couple hours, they'll like him. He's very personable. But again, like if you raise an animal who's been around you for a long time, he's got a lot of you in there. So if someone's not getting along with that animal, it's got to tell you something.
Got it.
So there.
Deal breaker for Rob Levy. My deal breakers are more like the boring stuff, like lying, cheating, being mean to other people.
I see.
That is a deal breaker for me.
Those are all good deal breakers.
I mean, I would think that would be normal for most people. But
right.
actually,
I'm giving you the less normal ones. I mean, common interests are important, to some degree, right? There are entertainment shows I like and types of things I like to do. And so some kind of commonality there is great so that when you do something you enjoy, like sometimes I just like to veg and watch something. So if we're connecting on types of shows, those are great. If we're not connecting, is it a deal breaker? It's not a deal breaker, but it's starting to kind of chip away on okay, how are we going to have downtime together, as opposed to like, hey, I need my downtime and this is what I'm going to do. And of course, common interests it's good to have common interests grow with each other. So it's not like, well, hey, you're not interested in this, that's it, but if a certain period of time is come and you don't have those common interests in the downtime moments, those are going to be problems. Fun stuff, rainy day stuff, activity stuff. Got to have a little bit on each to connect with. Yeah. For me. Yeah.
For you. You know what used to be a deal breaker for me, or I just wouldn't be open. When I was younger, I used to say like, he has to have rhythm and be a good dancer. I really thought that because I equated that with chemistry and sex until I started to meet people who were married. In particular, I did an engagement session with this couple, and they had great chemistry. You could tell I didn't even have to direct them much. And then at their wedding, I could just see like he could not dance like at all. He just almost like stood there and she's bubbly, jumping around. And I was like, oh, maybe not. Like maybe it's not true. So that was silly of me to write someone off just because I felt like they didn't have rhythm.
And those are the common young kind of physical elements type of thing, right? It's like being attracted to someone because they're hot. As you get older, as you mature, you start knowing that, hey, there are some things that are a little more important than just physical stuff. I need these other elements. Well, your connection to rhythm and dancing, that's kind of the same physical characteristic, but more on the kind of feeling side of it. Like that hit you on the feeling side of it, and you were like, oh, I'm really attracted to these type of people. And it is naturally when you see someone dance, all of a sudden they seem more attractive, especially when they move a certain way. Yes. And then as you mature and find things that you like about yourself and the other people, those things supersede. And then they're just not as high on the priority list, just like pure physical looks. When I was younger, like pure physical looks, that was like,
of course,
top.
Yes, totally. Yeah. Now it's definitely more about energy. They don't have to be a good dancer, but if I can see they're enjoying themselves, it's like, it's magnetic, right? They're having a good time. They're not trying to impress anyone. They're just enjoying themselves. That to me is attractive. And that's what Pete does on the dance floor. I can't say he's the best dancer. He's not a bad dancer, but either.
I think I've seen him dance.
Yeah. But he really enjoys himself when he's in party Pete mode. And I think it's super cute. So what are some challenges you've had with cultural differences?
So cultural differences meaning like just...
You've dated someone that grew up with different ethnicities, maybe different in a different way.
Some of the positive things is like food. You're going to get different varieties of food. And I love that. And for some people that are kind of meat and potatoes, that's a problem for them because now they're like, oh my God, I got to eat things that are weird, and different.
That's tough.
And that's awesome for me. My first girlfriend, she's her family was from India, and oh man, I got some of the best homemade Indian food. It was awesome. But on the challenges side of things, when you're dating someone, if common interests are important to you, and I grew up, my brother and I, we have all sorts of inside stuff. We like certain movies, and I mean, we still quote things and certain behaviors and stuff. You know how that is when you connect with someone. You've got history. It makes communicating more fun. And so when you have cultural differences, sometimes a lot of those things don't exist and they're gone. And
you have to explain.
You have to explain it, and then you get some tension when if you're around people and you say something and they find it funny and interesting, and the other person's like, what are you talking about? Again, not deal breakers, but those are some of the challenges when you have cultural differences. And again, there's some benefits too, because right away, being from different parts of the world or the country or whatnot, there's going to be different habits and perspectives. And so it starts to open your mind up, and you start to grow and see like, oh, I actually like this and like that. So those are good things, but also allowing yourself to be open to some of those things, as opposed to being like, well, this is how things are. This is how we're going to do things. And, if you're dating someone and there's not that kind of natural culture connection, and it's important to you to have some of that, then establish some stuff, like doing things more and more with each other are going to be more important, because you start developing your own kind of history together, your own kind of fun stuff, like having fun, laughing. Those are the things I think would be important when dating someone with cultural differences.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love to travel. Is just it kind of crumbles my belief of like my way's the right way too. Like people do things differently, and there's nothing good or bad or wrong with it. It's just different. And one example of a cultural challenge that I have experienced was with money. With one of my ex-boyfriends in my 20s, where I don't know if it's it's the culture around money, I guess. So I went to Phoenix to have Thanksgiving with his family. I was meeting everyone, and then, we go grocery shopping and stuff. And then when we went back, the family split the bill for the groceries, which I thought was interesting because my family doesn't do that. It's like you get it once, I get it once. But I'm like, aren't you going to see them again? Doesn't it like even out? And it just seemed really like distrusting to me, and like, if I'm being honest, like petty too. I was just like, what? And I could tell he would do that, have that mindset more when we would go out to eat as well. I'm like, I'm going to see you again. We were in a long-term relationship by now. We were going that direction. And it just made it seem like it wasn't. But it was just how he was brought up. We had to have the conversation about money. And I was like, oh, we usually just do it like this. And it evens out. And also with Chinese culture, have you dated a Chinese girl before?
No.
Stop it. Really?
Not like girlfriend, not long term.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I'm like, yes, you have. A lot of times when the bill comes, there's the culture of like fighting for the bill. Or it's rude if someone says, I'm going to pay, and you go, okay, that is considered rude. Right. And he didn't know that because it's not in his culture, So I told him, if we're with my parents or if someone wants to pay, normally you offer to pay, or you just go, no, no, no. And he just did it, but he was like, just like this. I'm like, yes, do that. Because it is considered rude if you don't. Yeah. That was probably one of the first times I realized it's not good or bad. Because initially I did have judgment around it. I was just like, what is going on here? But it's just different.
Yeah, and so that was that a cultural thing, or was that kind of unique to their family? The family culture.
Right. I don't want to generalize with like ethnicities and races, but I'll just say the culture around money in a more general sense. Of course, everyone's different because Pete's family is white or American too, but they're very much like my family, like the way that they do money and stuff like that. But I have experienced some white guys when I would date them that it was more split. Everything was like that. More common than with the Asian guys.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that too, but across different cultures, like both sides. You see guys that are adamant, like I'm taking care of this, and that's that. And I've seen in the same cultures guys that are, hey, let's split. And I know my friends, we just want to pay for it, and just we're happy to pay and happy to treat, and that kind of stuff. We're fighting, and again, like you said, your family, we're fighting to see who's going to pay for it. And sometimes you got to be creative and go sneak the thing in, and it's fun. And you know what? For people that can do that, great. But there's also people that are challenged financially, and for a number of reasons, and that shouldn't be a mark against them or not. If everything else is great. If they have issues with money because of that they grew up or whatever challenges they're having, but everything else is great, then work that out, work through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it's easier when you both see it the same way, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker in case anyone's listening, because people have very strong beliefs around things like money, right? Like this means that, like not necessarily, not necessarily.
Exactly.
Let's talk about loyalty in men versus in women. So loyalty amongst men, like friend groups. I feel like men in general tend to have longer term friendships. Like you guys have friendships from like school. Pete has friends from like middle school, high school. Do you feel that men tend to be more loyal with their friends than women?
From what I've seen, yes. Men have an easier time to connect with each other and stay connected. I'm sure there's a politically correct way to say, things, but and whatnot. But and this is straight from women. Women have a more difficult time connecting with women, and it's funny because I'll see all the time like women saying, "Oh my God, this person's my best friend. I want you to be my best friend." And like, "Oh, you get her best friend. So tell me about her." This and that. Well, we've only known each other for 3 months. I'm like, wait, so you're just gonna casually use best friend as and I see that a lot now, not with everyone, like with you and Jessica and April and a bunch of your close friends, but that word's not thrown around. Like I've never seen you say, "Oh, here's my best friend," is someone I've never seen before, just kind of popping in and out. But I think that says something to the type of person you are and how you value your relationships. Again, the male mind works different than the female mind in general. And in general, men have an easier time to not get on each other's nerves, to not get sensitive on, plans changing and whatnot. At the same time, I've lost some friendships because this guy was so sensitive to me not making plans with him, not flaking on him. Just he would invite me to stuff, and I would say, I'm busy. This 2-day notice. I'm sorry, but I'm busy. I have a commitment. I teach this night. And after a couple times, this person got very sensitive that I wasn't giving him any time and started lashing out on me. And I was like, okay, that's not someone that I want to be around with. And that's happened multiple times with people, and these are men. So it's not necessarily a male or female thing. I think in general, the women I've talked to that have had problems with friends have been that some people are just too sensitive and they have to skirt around stuff, and there's a flakiness that happens, and then that tends to bring out. I think in general, women are more flaky than men. When men say they're going to do something with plans and stuff, they do it. And then with women, there tends to be a lot of changes that happen, or if it's, hey, we're going to go meet today, well, it's raining, like, oh, let's do it another time. Versus guy friends, hey, it's raining, we can't go out and do something. All right, well, let's just go grab some food. So I see a lot of that tendencies. That doesn't mean that, it's always like that. I just see more men behaving like that and more women behaving like that. And that tends to cause, rifts in friendships. Not necessarily like I despise you kind of rifts, just the momentum's not there. I mean, there's plenty of times where I don't want to go out, but my friends, they ping me and we'll go and we'll hang out. And once you're out, everything changes and you're fine. So I think the getting out part, men instinctually have that go out and, adventure, explore type. So I think that's just inherent in them. And in the female makeup, it's more of the nesting type, just instinctually. And so it's easier for men to have those tendencies, and it's easier for women to have those other tendencies. And so that could end up causing problems long-term for friendships.
I see the same general pattern as well. And I have grown apart from some friends as well. I have, like April and Jess, we've been friends over 20 years, but there have been some where you just kind of grow apart as well, which I think is completely normal and fine. I think some relationships just run its course, and that's okay. I do find personally that, because I have a part of myself that's pretty grounded, so the times I've tried to make a weekly thing with female friends, I feel like I'm the only one that's like consistent with that, and everyone else just like kind of flutters away. But I feel like guys, like you guys have your run day every single Monday. Pete, meets up with his best friend like every week. It's very consistent. And I admire that. I think that's really nice because you nurture those relationships if they're important to you. Yeah. And I think it's important. It's healthy to have.
It is healthy. And again, I think you're that type of person who, yeah, you want to push and strive for that. And I think your makeup's a little different in that sense, that you want to strive for that. And that's great. So if you're a person that's having problems, like you feel like I don't really connect well with my female friends, I connect better with guys. Like I hear that all the time. Oh, I get along with guys better than girls. And, it's like, well, why do you do it? Why is it because that you don't want to do that extra effort that happens when people cancel on you and type of friends that you're attracting and things like that? But so in your case, when you try to do that weekly thing, what ended up and doing a weekly thing isn't easy. Like when we started our Monday run day thing where we got together, it was just me and Mark, and we just kind of kept that going. And then all of a sudden more and more people got on board. And because we have like a group of 5 or 6 people, it's easier to get it going. And also a few of those people have families now. And they like getting out and getting some exercise and then being completely immature with their friends and then going back to all the responsibility that they have, and they feel refreshed. They need it. I feel like they need it. So it's not like it doesn't really take much effort to keep it going because they feel like they need it.
That's true. Because like with his soccer and stuff, it is something he needs. If he's not doing it, I could tell he just doesn't feel like himself.
And like kudos to you, kudos to Jess, Aaron's wife and all the wives in our group. And this is where I feel like another reason why it's been is because they support that. They're like, they want them to go out there and get stuff done. And I think they feel like they see a positive change in them when they come back. Like I've also seen the opposite, not in our group, but I would see the opposite in that attitude of, oh, you're going out and playing with your friends, you do, and kind of holding that against them. And keeping score on stuff. And so if they want to do some other personal stuff or alone time or whatnot, they get dinged on that. Of course, if you're always looking for an excuse to get away from your partner, that is a problem. The healthy relationships are more, you're very involved in the relationship and the family and the this and that, and you have your little outlets here and there. Whether or not they're consistent or not is one thing. But if that starts to become like the de facto of like, I'm always looking to find something else to do, that's a red flag.
Just escape. Okay. So the last question is, do you think it's appropriate for a man over 40 to date someone who is 18? I'd say like 18 to 21.
Okay. So 18 to 21. 18 to 21 is a big change, both male and female. There's big changes happening, right? So maturity-wise and figuring out. So let's see if we can answer this a little more than
I want the unfiltered I want the unfiltered response.
Anytime you have a maturity gap, you're going to have some challenges. In some cases, it's debatable whether an 18 to 21-year-old is still a child, depending on the person. And as an adult, even if you have childlike qualities, it could absolutely be very inappropriate. And there's going to be some cases where it doesn't seem as appropriate. And so I don't want to give this blanket judge, but when you have two maturity gaps like that, you have one person more mature than the other. So, and this one is obvious. It's very obvious who's more mature in this one, which is the
older person, or the guy.
It's the younger person.
What?
The younger person is in their range of maturity and above it. So within their, you can't just put maturity in a vacuum and say maturity. Right. So within that 18-year-old to 21-year-old range, that person is more mature for who they are, for their age.
For who they are.
And the older person is not as mature. Why they're seeking a younger relationship? Because of X reason, Y reason. And they could be viable. It could be because the older person has got a ton of regrets from their childhood. They missed out on a lot of stuff. They missed that young energy, or they're facing their older self now and they're having a midlife crisis. They haven't matured into their 40s or 50s or whatever that is. And there's some issues that are causing them to want to seek some youth. And it could just be the straight primitive stuff. This person's young and hot. That that's where I'm just me, man, you woman. I like. There could be that. But, as you get older, again, that starts to fade. It starts to become more controlled. But if you have all these regrets, or if you've had, some problems in your life and you're feeling very insecure about yourself, financial, relationships, other stuff, you tend to look to things that make you feel better about yourself. And that could be one of those things. So now you have a person who's older, who's actually not as mature for their age. And then what happens if that person actually starts to become more mature? So it could be very simple, like they spend some time with an 18-year-old or 19-year-old, and the conversations are really bad and it's painful. And now all of a sudden they start to develop a little sense of
brain.
Yeah. Brain. Well, they start to connect with like, okay, this isn't what I really want. Now they're if that was right away, fine. But let's say they were dating for a little bit. And if your intention, if you start to say to yourself, oh my God, I really like this person for so many reasons. And as your maturity catches up to who you are, and so now you guys are on a equal-ish maturity for where you are, what else is there? Are you guys now connecting, or are there clearly some differences? And so, and is this male or female, right? So When I was a teenager, 19, 20, I was dating older. And when I was, 30s, I was dating a little bit younger.
You were dating
right?
cougars?
Yes, I guess you could call them
The
cougars.
like
Yes,
you.
the cougars do like
I've
me,
seen
yes,
this.
yeah.
I've witnessed this.
Yeah, and just yeah, that's for another show maybe. But just for the record, my mom is 14 years older, 15 years older than my dad.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so so I definitely don't have a problem with an older woman dating a younger man, because otherwise I would not be here. But and again, they had issues. Obviously, they divorced at some point, and they had cultural differences. They had other differences. I don't exactly know the the ins and out of it because I was really young. Sometimes things work for a moment, and then they don't work. And just don't get into something like that, lying to yourself, thinking like, oh my God, this person gets me and gets me. And then as maturity levels start to settle in, all of a sudden you find yourself kind of stuck in a situation that you were looking so forward to. And then you get depressed again because the reason why you got in it was maybe for insecure reasons, as opposed to how well do you guys really connect. And hey, there could be a right match there. Who knows? I'm not going to judge, but don't lie to yourself and, or your friends, things like that.
See, I would judge that. And you're right that you never know. And there are some fantastic couples that do have a big age gap like that.
Right. But 18, 19, 20 to 40
is usually, right. You change a lot during those years.
But 25, usually. 26 to like 40, there's a huge development. And scientifically in the brain's developed. The women brain develops faster than the men in those maturity levels. And so they are a lot a bit ahead of the male brain in that stage. And you see some younger people genuinely attracted to some older people because that older person is giving that intellectual need and type of stuff. And of course you see all the superficial stuff in between, either way.
Yeah. I get more protective of the younger females. I see it more from because I assume like if someone's 40 or above, I'm like, you should know better, number one. But I guess I have to accept that maybe some people just aren't there yet. Their maturity level probably is when they're still like 18 or 19, maybe.
Right. So you see that older person is the more immature person, right? In that kind of sense.
Right. And I'm putting that expectation on them. Like, you should know better. And also I see it as if you had a daughter, like you say you're fine with that. Oh yeah, an 18-year-old, that's an adult. That's an adult. And I'm like, imagine if you have a daughter and she turns 18 and she wants to date 40-year-old, 45-year-old, and clearly she doesn't have that much experience with what she wants yet, and she's not sure, but you can tell that he has more of an idea because he's dated around more. Mm-hmm. Would you feel completely fine with that? And I feel like there would be a little part of it to be like, oh, you want to protect her.
Of course, absolutely.
So I feel like when guys don't see that, like maybe because I'm a woman, maybe I'm more maternal, like I want to protect the younger woman, especially because I've been in that situation as well when I was that young. And I did.
So you dated someone older?
I've gone on dates with guys that were older.
And
yeah.
So what was the age gap there?
It would be like,
probably
the oldest guy would be 20 years. Yeah, like I'd be 20, 21, 40. And this isn't long-term relationships.
You weren't 18, 19 dating a 40-year-old, were you?
But 21. That's pretty young.
It's young, but can you imagine if you were now your 18-year-old self instead of 21?
I mean, I kind of, it's a little different, but I still feel like 21's pretty young. Like
it is pretty young. But there's still like you're now starting to approach to where you do know yourself.
I can go to a bar with him.
Well, so
he
obviously
can take me to a bar.
There are those things where it's like you can't even drink together if you're drinkers, and that's very awkward, of course. I just want to make a note though that your 21-year-old self knew yourself a lot better than your 18-year-old self, and then your 25-year-old self probably, correct me if I'm wrong, knew a lot bit more than your 21-year-old self, and then it starts to get a lot.
Even once everyone hits like a certain maturity level, it doesn't seem as extreme. But I remember thinking, like, now that I'm the age that those guys were, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would date someone that young. Granted, I don't think I was doing anything like super crazy, but just like when I hang out with someone that age, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even have a conversation with you.
Right.
I am very judgmental.
Did you secretly want to go back to those men that you were dating saying, what's wrong with you? Why did you should have known better? Or did you enjoy that time with them?
I wouldn't even want to talk to them. No, I'm actually a little mad about it. Like, I'm kind of like...
Are you mad at yourself or are you mad at them?
Both. Okay. Like, because I didn't know better, so I've done the personal growth. That's why you're
protective, a little bit more protective, because you are mad at yourself for that, and so as well as them, and so I think that's where it's a
right. But I just feel like, okay. Yeah. I mean, as the older person, like I did feel like taken advantage of a little bit, just because they knew better. I think they kind of knew how to direct things better than I did, because I'm still learning. You know, I haven't dated a ton. I didn't have a ton of boyfriends before. I'm learning my boundaries. And if they know that, I do feel like having integrity is...
And that is absolutely inappropriate and taking advantage of someone if you're dating someone younger than you, 18 to 21, 22, 23, 25, and you're manipulating them and you're playing off of things. Yeah, that's inappropriate for sure. Yeah. I mean, if there was a genuine connection with that and things moved a certain way, you probably feel different. But if not, and it's like they're fabricating feelings because they know how to manipulate a younger person, that is inappropriate.
Yes.
I would definitely call it inappropriate.
Yes. Yeah. But there are some people who are good people. They just don't know any better. Mm.
They don't know any better. And you're here to set them straight. And I am the patsy.
Okay. All right. That's it for this segment. We didn't argue that much.
We'll have to...
Didn't get enough eyeball rolls in.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to get a little more in the next segment.
On the next show, I'm going to ask Rob some questions that you guys sent in that you wanted me to ask single guys.
Okay.